live on YouTube, and here we go. So today we're going to teach everybody how to read a calendar, because apparently I don't know how to do that and take notes correctly on my own calendar. So Nick Ciparro is here. He is running for County Commission District 3, and I wrote it down on the calendar wrong, so I was expecting him next week. He's here today, so we threw it together and we're going to make it happen, because that's what we do. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com. That's where all the fun stuff is. You'll see Nick on the list of other candidates on our Voter Guide 22. You'll get a link to this episode, as well as a link to his website or Facebook page, whatever he prefers, as well as all the other candidates running. If I've had an interview with them, there's a link on there, and then links to their own page of some sort. So you get KGIS and Election Commission there too. There's been some precinct changes, so go double check, make sure you know where you're going to vote when you go vote. And those are the best references that I know of to find those things. So we're almost in agreement. We're going to do a show. We're going to get back into the fun of it. And Nick Ciparro, everybody. Here we go. Hold on a second. I armed the wrong channel. All right. Hey, Nick, what's going on, buddy?
A bunch of stuff.
Yeah, me too. It's been post-spring break got real crazy for me, and I haven't quite been able to get the world back out in front of me yet. Trying to get all these candidates in, and now we got, 9 days, and all the state candidates to start petition deadline comes in, and then I've got a whole nother slate of candidates to start going to try to talk to. And so it's been it's exciting, it's fun, it's content, which is, I guess, is good for me, but maddening nonetheless. So I don't know. Okay, so last time you were in here, you were running for city. We went through that whole shebang. I don't know how much you want to go back in the past on that. I don't really care if you don't care, but and now you're running for Commission District 3. So what I always like to do, regardless, I know you've been here before, but give me the brief history of Nick and how Nick went from a little wee baby child to the man sitting in front of me today.
Absolutely. So I was actually born in Florida, and then I moved to Knoxville in 91, so I was 11. I've been here ever since, basically. I've been out of the state and out of the country a couple times and whatnot, but not necessarily. Knoxville has not left my heart.
Gotcha.
A year here or, a couple months there or whatever. But so I was drafted into the music industry in about 98, about when I was 18. Had an interest in science all the way up until this point, and then it was like, oh, music gets girls. So, that's...
Right, like any teenage dude does.
Exactly. Check. Yeah. Because it's either money, girls, or fast cars, and I had none of those things. So music could get those things. So it was just one of those things. And then by 2010, I was out of the music industry pretty solidly. I met my wife, got into the scientific field pretty deeply. Currently we do recycling fiberglass or glass fiber reinforced polymers. Long story is, Corvette hoods and wind turbine blades.
Neat dorky stuff. Check.
Yeah. And when I ran for city council, I was pointing some of the flaws of what was going on in the city because, I have a team of engineers that I work with, and we have to know math. So when you look at the city budget and the things like that, you're right. They don't have the money for this. They don't have the money for
Which is very interesting because there was an article like a week or so ago, and it's like I remember going through these city races and talking to, I was at Lauren Ryder specifically about some of the, there was the cap the tax thing that the waiter group was trying to push through and kind of stuff like that, which was an interesting, fun little bit of testing the process. I love those kind of things as far as we're having a, I can't remember what the technical term is, but a community-led initiative as opposed to it being commission or mayor introduced, and that was exciting and fun to watch. And but I remember it being a good bit of strong pushback on we don't need to raise taxes, things are going fine, blah blah, this that and the other. And then 2 weeks ago we see an article about American Canaan maybe looking to raise taxes.
She has to
through this new budget for the
discussion.
Right,
she has to. They're out of money. I think it's next month. That's why you're seeing all this going on, is because they're literally out of money.
Right.
And so this was the thing. I was like, you can't throw $65 million into this project. You can't throw $100 million in that project, and you can't do this and this and this without having the money.
Right.
I mean, this is like you and I, we have a certain budget for our home. You don't go and say, well, you know what? I think I'm going to spend $100,000, equivalent to my home price, or well, now,
Right. A
definitely
third,
not.
a quarter of my home price now.
Yeah. It's one of those things. You're not going to spend $100,000 on something on a doodad.
Right.
Okay. Especially something that
I don't know.
doesn't-
It's 2020. It's past 2020. The consumer credit game is just
you
everybody
never
lives
know.
on it anymore. So
You
who
never
cares
know.
about 20% finance debt on my credit card?
Oh yeah. Just pay the minimum payment for the
Right.
rest of your life,
Right.
and then your kids can pay for it, and your grandkids.
Right.
Well, that's what they're doing again.
No.
And so I was telling people, I was like, look, this is going to be a fact. This is a fact. It's going to happen. Not only that, but they're gonna adjust. They're gonna not only increase the tax rate, but the reassessment is this year.
Right.
So, and nothing against the property assessor, not at all. He's a good man, and the woman that's behind him, that may be the new property assessor after he retires out, they are good people. They're just doing their job. I mean, it's like it's.
That's elected position next cycle, right?
I believe so, or something like that. Anyway,
Right.
It's neither here nor there about that. The point is that we had a big candidate forum. And I said, hey, look, they're gonna use. I know this for a fact because I actually heard them behind the scenes saying things like, well, we'll just go by it, bet on the fact that the property taxes, the values, so the home values will go up, so that the actual revenue amount will come in higher.
Right.
So I said it. I said, look, and it was Mr. Whitehead. I said, they're gonna raise this revenue because of that, and they all, Lauren Ryder stood up and called me a liar, and McKinsey called me a liar, and Tommy Smith said, I don't know what he's talking about. He's stupid. He's a liar. And of course, my opponent, Seema, give her credit. Either she's dumb or she was smart enough not to say anything, because she was just like, I don't really know.
Right.
So it is what it is. And I was like, whoa, hold on. And I called Mr. Whitehead, because I was like, stop this right here. I can't have the sitting city council call me a liar when this is a real life fact.
Right.
And
we have the person who can dedicate or
that's exactly right.
Authenticate said fact in the room.
And I pointed him out, and I said, Mr. Whitehead, can you answer this question? If my house was $100,000 this year and it gets evaluated at $200,000 next year, will more money be coming out of my pocket? And he said, that's correct, sir.
Right.
End of discussion. That's a raise in property taxes, or raise in the cost to the owner.
Right.
I don't know how you want to spin that, but then I'm looking at it, and I started looking deeper, and because of how much money they're spending, and by the time that evaluation goes through, and the appeals processes and all that go back and forth, and they finally actually start accepting that revenue, they're already out of money.
Right.
So it's like, oh.
I've been wanting to get a hold of him. I want to do a show with him because I'm curious how what the process actually is, because it's like it's not the sale value of the home per se.
Yeah.
Because you could have, like, I want to say, I'd have to go look up mine, but especially now,
like Zillow.
right, especially now, but like the price I think I could get away with selling my house for, I want to say my assessed value is like half of that right now.
Yeah.
Because the last assessment was forever ago when the market wasn't as ridiculous as it is. So I'm curious how that works.
I think they do it by they do it by zones within the neighborhoods, or what's closest to you relative to. So if you're out there in Carnes and you have 5 acres around you,
right.
Okay, you don't have a neighborhood, so you don't have like a cookie cutter
right.
copy paste. Like my neighborhood's Fair Oaks, so all of our houses are relatively the same split foyer,
right.
Same square footage. I have the largest lot in Fair Oaks, and then my neighbor Terry has the second largest lot in Fair
right.
Oaks. So that kind of really hits us, except mine looks like Jurassic Park, so it's not very usable. That's how I used that I was like, look, it might say 3.8 acres or whatever it is, or 2.89, or I don't even care. None of that's usable. It's all
right.
absolute forest on a hill like this, and
yeah.
that. But so I could make that claim, and they didn't raise my property assessment up by very much, because on paper it's that much. So I think there's a little bit of that where they kind of look at what's around you and what
right.
the values are around you, and then assess it by that. So if you're a house and you have your home, and then all your neighbors sold their houses for triple the price that your house is currently evaluated, brace for impact.
Right.
That's going to happen to you.
Right.
Your value is going to be evaluated higher, because they know you can get that money for that house.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like that process and the timeline of how that works, and then how that then impacts us as citizens is a curiosity that I again, like I said, I really want to get him on to get a little bit deeper into that. But to finish your part of the story on it is that if a property tax raise, whether it's city or county, goes into effect, or I'm sorry, if the assessment goes up, in effect, you're getting a raise in your out-of-pocket tax expenditure.
That's exactly right.
And that was what you were called a liar for, and then that's where I interrupted your story.
No, and then of course, I had him stand up. He confirmed what I said, and literally, if those two women on the left could use Superman laser eyes, I would be dust today. I mean, they were looking at me like and I'm like, you tried to call an engineer a liar about math. Good luck.
Right.
You can't play with me on this. You're a librarian, and I don't even know what you do for a living. So, it was one of those kind of things.
Right. And again, it's one of those, like, for the layperson watching the show here and trying to figure out what's going on, the statement can be true. We will not raise taxes.
Yep.
As far as we will not change the percentage amount that we are going to put onto your value to get our return. But if X happens, then it's still going to, like, the bottom line of it. And that's the politics, and it's normal, I suppose. It's unfortunate that it's normal, but it is. But, okay, so staying on taxes and moving to current race is we're in county, and that's a topic that everybody's talking about. I've heard a handful of candidates promise me they won't, which, I don't know. I don't know. It's one of those I go back and forth on, because a lot of the promise and on the same kind of little shell game is, well, we let this multi-million-dollar development come in. Those values come up because it's been developed, then that new tax revenue can pay for the infrastructure needed for that neighborhood to exist, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, I get that. But it doesn't seem like that's really the case of what's currently happening. And so where are you on right now? You don't get the seat until after that's all passed, but you will take over the current budget and then work on the next one. Because as of right now, there's not new taxes on this current budget. But next session, for lack of a better word, that may be a topic.
Yeah. So evidently, from what I've seen, we're like really far behind on our open development. There's a lot of different how they and by they I mean like a lot of the developers and a lot of the city people and the county people that are trying to get Knoxville to be a big city. They believe that we're like 15 years behind. I think we're actually more like 5 years behind, because Nashville took a lion's share of
all the new Tennesseans, right?
Yes. But that being said, that is where actually the county...
I'm sorry, real quick. Behind on what?
Behind on
total development, like
total
number
development.
of homes?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many new homes are built and everything like that. And it's true. We are a little bit behind. In fact, we're, in a way, a lot behind, because we're behind the 8 ball on this. There's so... I mean, houses just sell like that.
Right.
And
I've got a couple of friends trying to buy right now, and it's been brutal.
I've had multiple employees that finally got in. Got their homes.
Right.
I mean, it's tough. And I understand. I totally understand that, because we are having a huge influx because of COVID. That was one thing. People were getting out of New York and saying, well, I have a $500,000, Cracker Jack box. If I sell that in New York and then move down to Knoxville, Tennessee,
you can get a McMansion.
Yep.
And you're good to go.
Yeah. And the taxes are almost nothing.
Right.
Relative to what New York is, just excruciating. So I understand why those people are moving. That's one thing. I just hope that they keep their liberal values that have gotten them into that terrible position in the first place there, and they come down here and more like what's that called? Come into the melting pot of Knoxville.
Assimilate.
Yeah, assimilate. Yeah, that is a good word. But
my big word of the day.
I like the melting pot idea. The kind of like they bring their flavor in, we give them some flavor. It's delicious, and it's one of those things.
Right.
So. Because that's a good analogy for the United States too,
right.
to live by. So it's one of those kind of things where, they come down here, they're buying up houses because it's cheap for them.
Right.
And for us, to move laterally, now you can sell your house for a whole lot more, but where are you going to buy?
Right.
And that's one of the things. So now I'll get to my background.
The real kicker to that conversation, though, is have been renting, just started a family trying to buy a house. So you don't even have the advantage of that major cash influx of the sale to go into the buy with.
You're doing.
Right. Like, I mean, that's a national thing. That's not just a local thing for the most part. People trying to get their starter homes are struggling across the board.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a fact. And so, with that being said, we are expanding and everything like that. And one of the big things with that infrastructure thing is when you are a county commissioner, whether or not you give the thumbs up on that planning, on that zoning, so that they could do that development.
Right.
Because I'm going to say this, like where I live, Fair Oaks, there's not really that much room to do that. Now, right next to it is an area where they just put up, I would say 30 or 40 apartments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now that road, that road that goes into McCamey right there, the whole intersection is kind of wonky and it's really small. And McCamey is a very narrow little, it's just a 2-lane, but it's literally drop off on each side. It's
Right.
not built for that much traffic.
Right.
And so when they go and they give the thumbs up to things like that over and over and over again, it's one thing if you had a building project that's right over off of Hardin Valley, where Middlebrook's 4 lanes wide. It's right there next to Pellissippi Parkway, all that. And some of that is in my district now because they've moved the districts around. And that was open spaces. And now they're replacing it with, apartments and homes or condos or houses or whatever neighborhood, whatever they're putting in there. And that density varies by whatever they applied for. But that dumps into a big artery. And that's kind of what you have to think of as, a chemical engineer. That's all we do is fluid flow and thermodynamics all day.
Right.
Now, that's why I dabble in material science because it helps me do my job. But that being said, what happens there is you just have to look at, well, what roads are around there? Is it possible for a 100-person or 100-family unit to be stuffed right here in this little area that only has one road going into it? And it goes into another, a tiny road at that, 1 lane on each side, this and that, and it's old and it's been there forever, but it didn't have to have that traffic, that upgrade to the infrastructure for the the current residents. Right. That's what you have to do, and you can actually literally ask the developers to offset some of this cost. There's one that's off of I can't remember I'm doing really bad.
I mean, we had one right out here. There's a big project right out here off North Shore. There's a North Shore Corridor Association that's trying to fight back on it because North Shore can't handle the traffic, and I agree with that part.
That's exactly right.
But one of the things that this developer agreed upon is that they would put a wastewater facility because it's on the river, and they would build the wastewater facility and give it to KUB that would handle all the wastewater for that development and then what's currently surrounding it and stuff like that. And that actually ended up being the legal grounds for the group against it, being like, well, it's not zoned to have that, so you can't put that in. And it's like, well, to me that was a feature, not a negative, to put that in there. And again, I'm out here
so
in it.
You're shooting yourself in the foot so that you can win a legal argument.
Right.
But you're not going to win that legal argument because probably I'm willing to bet that the city and county already voted thumbs up.
Right.
And it's going to happen anyway. You might as well take them up on it. And that's what I was saying is there was one that I was dealing with when I was in city council, and the neighborhood kind of didn't want it. Okay. And it was an 8-unit condo, duplex thing. So 16 families live in this area. It's right there off of, Francis Drive and all that, right? Mm-hmm. And really, you know what I did? I knocked on the man next door, his door.
Right.
Because ironically enough, where he lives, the property next door, his father owned that land. So I asked him, what do you think about it? He goes, well, if they make sure that the road is right and that maybe there's a sidewalk that goes, because if they have kids and all that stuff, then yeah, that works. That works for me.
Right.
Because ultimately, they have no other. This property is a little unique because it's triangular shape and the only neighbor is him.
Right.
Okay. So at that point, that's who you have to confer to, because the guy that lives next door is actually the person that's important. You don't want to burden him.
Right.
And if there's 5 neighbors, you got to talk to all 5. And so that's just how it is, And if the entire neighborhood hates the idea of a new development, that's how it's going to be. I mean, you kind of got to lean towards that. I hate to push back and say no, you can't have a development. I like the idea of Knoxville growing and
it's to me it's one of those things that I hear all the time is we need more affordable housing in town, and it's like, well, if to me at least a layman economics view of what's going on right now is the reason housing is so expensive is a lack of supply.
Yep. So
we need to raise the supply level, but I don't want to build new stuff.
Yep.
And it's like, well, you got to. It's one or the other here. You can't have low priced homes and a low supply. It's just not going to happen that way, especially with the outside demand we have coming in for housing.
Yep.
It's just not an option. And like, it's just a weird, like, it's one of those weird things that I get in the conversation with people about. And it's like, they're stuck on the platform and this is what I'm going to do. It's like, I don't know how to fix that because you like, I know you agree with this premise is like, you can't efficiently have the city or the county manage property like that.
No.
They can't be the ones who are going, okay, well, we're going to build this high-rise apartment complex and do it for way cheaper rent than everybody else because that's going to force the market down and stuff. It's going to turn into a classical slum, which is no good for anybody.
Yeah.
And so, trying to get private entities to do it, you have to do it by allowing growth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what you do, you can – these developers are not – I don't think they're evil people by any means. They're just they're trying to make money just like any other person, right? But the neat thing about it is that as a county commissioner or a city council member or the county mayor or the city mayor is that you can put earmarks on it like, well, they'll meet with you and they'll say, hey, I'm going to do this and this and this. And one of the things I would say is like, well, okay, you can't have – if you're going to do this little development, I talked to him and totally liked him because I said, hey – as long as the houses aren't all the same cookie cutter look, it looks like a real neighborhood instead of that. You know what I'm talking about? Those neighborhoods that have popped up that are all the same exact siding, same exact house, and there's 20 or 30 of these houses, and you're just like, oh,
right. At
that's
best, the garage flip sides or something like that.
Yeah. Or it has a different front door.
Right.
Well, that's not good enough. Fair Oaks is a pretty good example, or Cumberland Estates across the way, where the houses are roughly the same thing. The same kinds of layouts, but they got creative with it and made them different colors, different shapes, different siding patterns, all those things are available. You can have all kinds of different facades and everything like that on the home, different roof color even, and it makes the neighborhood have personality. And I think that's one of the things that people are afraid of is these McMansions or these cookie cutter, just the same thing stamped out house.
Right.
And all it is low income people coming in. If you have a $400,000 home off of North Shore, you certainly probably do not want a neighborhood full of apartment complexes where those people are, they might, they're paying $200 a month for their rent. Okay. Meanwhile, you're paying your mortgage, which is incredible. And they go out there and they have crappy cars and things like that. And they're, no insurance or something like that. And you pull out your new Lexus and get T-boned by one of those kids that are, screwing around in a hopped up Honda Civic that's worth $1,800, has no insurance. I understand these caveats, when people go down this mental rabbit hole of why, they're gonna lock themselves in. They're like, I just don't want anything to change.
Right.
That's actually the real thing. They just don't want anything to change. They don't want any more traffic. They already have it. It's tough enough. You take a left on North Shore from one side, or you take a right, and it's just murderous. And that's a good example. North Shore is a good example, and also Rutledge Pike was when I first ran for city council way back in 2003. They were like, oh, we don't want to expand Rutledge Pike. And I'm like, yeah, right. Well, that's probably going to be needed.
Right.
And they never did expand it, and now it's just an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go down there, and it's just like,
I'm interested to see. I think North Shore needs to be expanded. I just don't know how.
Yeah,
with the space, with everything,
where does it go? Where's the road go?
Right. For long stretches of it, there is nowhere for it to go. Like, there's spots definitely where they could widen it out, add a couple lanes, whatever. But for big chunks of it, especially the more trafficy chunks of it, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
They're going to be in people's front
in their
doors.
yard. Yeah, in their front door, in their yard. And that is where you have to look at, process density and fluid flow. In chemical engineering, fluid is anything that's moving. It could be air, it could be water, it could be even salt or sand or something like that. Because as long as it's moving in a laminar way, then you can call it a fluid. So in that case, traffic could be considered that. And that's where civil engineers should be looking into this, going and advising the council on okay, these are areas that are, and not only that, not only advising the county commission and the mayor on this, but also conferring with the sheriff's department because they have to get. Sometimes the police cruiser has to go 150 miles an hour down the road to get to the emergency.
Right.
Same thing with fire services. All those things.
As long as they have their lights on, don't run somebody over in the process.
Oh yeah.
These are the jokes.
Anyway, but the point is that you want to have that mentality before you put in development. And if the developer says, "Hey, I think I can get a stretch of traffic and most of the traffic to go in this direction, and I'll help with like," again, that one developer said, "Hey, I'll put the sidewalk all the way down Francis Road." Well, if that's the case, I mean, that's an expansion of the road, and he's willing to pay for it.
Right.
Well, now you're doing really good for the community.
Right.
And, that's one of those kind of things that makes Knoxville more beautiful. It's not, it's not what they did to Cumberland Strip.
Right.
where they just wrecked it.
Speaking of cookie cutter.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, I was so mad about that because, I mean, I used to play shows down there, and it was so much fun to have like people cruising down the Strip, and people go, "Oh, we don't want them cruising. We don't want them doing this." Yeah, but on a Friday night, and Saturday night, it's a lively event,
Right.
and that's what made all of those businesses be alive, and that's where because the college. You can't expect college kids to make every bar down the Strip function,
Right.
and every restaurant down the Strip.
They can't even make a Crystals function. That's how bad it is down there.
Oh, that broke my heart.
I mean,
that hit me personally.
Like Crystals is college food, and
Yeah.
you can't even survive a Crystals on campus
Nope.
somehow.
I was befuddled.
I think
by
that's.
that.
I mean, I think it's a great.
That was the corporate.
Crystals,
Yeah. That was the corporate structure. All the corporate ones shut down. So like even the Level Road one. Anyway, Crystals is close to my heart. So I was